Hello guys, and welcome to episode 28 of Minecraft Cities and Castles. And today I am so glad to be able to finally present the finished Brewerstown project. This has been going on for a couple months since early January, and the project really ballooned for a while and then stagnated for a while, and then I finally went back in and I worked on all the interiors, a lot of which was on stream with you guys, and we finally got it all done. I am super happy with how this place has turned out. You saw in the cinematic intro, I tried to show off a little bit of what's happening on the exterior of this place, because this tour is mostly going to focus on the really juicy bits, a lot of the houses, the cool shops, the big church, the castle. But I do want to first give you just a little bit of an idea of how we get here in the world. So if you're going to spawn in, it's going to be from that direction, and this is a pretty major path because it takes you to Castle Stoneheart over here. I came back in though, and I added in some more farms and stuff, and now we have this little kind of no man's land between the Stoneheart area and the Brewerstown area, and you can see that it's demarcated by this little ditch stream thing. When you want to enter the Brewerstown lands, you're going to be met by this big old gate and a little gatehouse. This has a couple of the Brewerstown guards, but we come in here, we have all these beautiful farms, we have some orchards, we also have some grazing lands, pastures for cows and stuff, and some places where we're growing berries, fruits, vegetables. In the backyards of all these houses, we see that they have a little bit of livestock, so some of them are keeping like birds, pigs, sheep. We have some chickens around here. We also have here another type of agriculture, you could say, or resource harvesting, which is we have some pollarded trees, which means that we cut off the tops of the branches so that they would grow these nice straight green kind of twigs that we can then cut off and use for making like wicker fences like we have around here, or for using up for firewood. Up there we have a little path that gets to the mills. This is actually the first place in the world that has windmills, which is really cool. And up here we have the miller's house. We also have this big old custom wagon that I made, which I think looks really cool. A lot of this place is inspired by Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2 now, but there are tons of other influences in here as well. Like I said, I got help from people during the live streams, I got help from people during the Discord. I used a ton of reference images from medieval reconstructions and from fantasy stuff. Of course, my love of like Game of Thrones and The Witcher always bleeds through these builds. For those of you who are wondering, the population of this place is something that I'm going to put up right here on the screen because I don't actually remember it by heart. But it's about third place in terms of all the locations in the world. So it's a pretty populous kind of place. This is including the metropolitan area, which just means that I've included the farmlands and stuff in that population metric. I'm not just talking about the castle itself. But we have so many cool builds out here. A donkey that's stuck, apparently. This one is the butcher's house, so you can see that he has like a laundry line here, a little smoking area. If we come around here, we have a little storage space, and here we have the shop. And a lot of the houses are divided in this kind of way, where they have these backyards that will have like a toilet and a laundry line and some vegetables growing. Then the front will be a shop, and then we'll have a living space behind it. And because everyone in Brewerstown basically is illiterate, there are no shop sign names. All the shops are delineated with these little custom signs. And I explained how I did those in a proper video on signs that I did a while back. Over the town, there is a flock of birds made with levers and buttons. If we come around here, we have a bathhouse, which I think is pretty cool. So we have this little interior here. A lot of the shops are going to be a little bit dim because I didn't really build this with shaders for the most part. but we're only trying to use a couple of candles in here and rely a lot on natural sunlight coming in through these windows and stuff. Over here, of course, we have our little laundry line, and I built this place in 1.21.4, but I did just recently update, so what that means is that I'm going to come back in here and add in a bunch of firefly bushes, because I would love to have some big kind of firefly swarms down by the water here, where it gets a little bit more stagnant, you know? If we get back to the main path though, we can see that we are coming up to the main gate, but we also have a couple of side ways that we can go. So if we go that way, we'll go around the back of the town to where the kind of forest and hunting pavilion is, and there's actually a second dockyard. But this place will get us down to the main dockyard and further to some more builds. So following this path here, we get to where Brewerstown does a lot of its trade, basically, which is that they have, these little boats for fishing and whatnot, but they also have these big sort of shallow-bellied trading ships that go over there down the river, and they float all the way to Regensburg, basically. So that's another big trading partner that they have. Now, if we follow this road here, hey, I thought that would go. If we follow this road here, we have this nice little area with the trees. The idea being that trees would kind of block the wind a little bit and also keep this hill from sliding down, because trees have root systems, and even though they're not always super deep, they're really good for stabilizing the land. Past this wall here, we have a little area. So there is the herb woman's hut, which I showed off at the beginning here, as well as this old ruin across from the castle. Over here we have a house under construction and a little pond that has been dammed off to keep the water up here when we need it. This little stream runs down into a woodsman's area. So these guys are chopping up wood for constructions and for firewood, that kind of thing. Things that are important to the town. We have these new types of toilets, basically, which is supposed to be like a little stick hovering over a hole, and then you just drop your business where it needs to go. Brewerstown is where I started experimenting a lot with display entities, which I think are really cool. Basically, imagine if you could place item frames in midair. So you get to do tons of cool stuff that way, really. But we have this whole kind of custom forest area, and it extends around here. So this is the quarry. You can see this is where we've gotten a lot of our stone from to actually build Brewerstown. But because Brewerstown is mostly already built, past tense, we're not really using it much anymore. So there isn't a ton of work being done here. Some of these houses are actually abandoned. Specifically, this one here, nobody really lives here anymore. It's kind of just dark and dingy. But back when this place was still operational, we were cutting up and carving stone, and we even had a little blacksmith here. So this guy would make sure that all of our tools were nice and sharp. You can also see, though, that we have accidentally punctured through and found a big old cave here. So there is a limestone cave that is a little bit under the town, a little bit under the castle. Way back here, you can see there's actually a pre-medieval worshipping site, where it looks like they had this little kind of clay idol, and they were putting a bunch of little sacrifices here. So there's a little bowl for offerings, and people were bringing pots and stuff filled with who knows what. So yeah, this place looks like it used to be accessible to the outside world at one point, and it kind of got lost, and now it's been rediscovered, which is a really cool detail that we have here. If we ditch our torch and come back out, you'll see that there is a sheep pen back there. So we have some shepherds working in the area, and that is the hunting grounds that I showed off in a previous video that was dedicated to this whole custom forest, back when I started doing the custom forests. Swinging around, we have a tannery. If you guys recall, we saw some pigs and cows and sheep and stuff. So here they're getting all the leather from there, and they're getting the animal hides that come from the hunting, and they're turning that into leather, which is pretty cool. And then at the end of the day, they kind of dump that stuff into the water. So there's a bit of water pollution happening here. The reason that it's on this side back here and not over there is because I didn't want it to interfere with the bathhouse, because you want your bathhouse water to be nice and clean. And the last thing I'm going to show you guys out around this area is that we are planting hops. So hops is one of the kind of necessary ingredients for making beer. And beer was really popular starting in the early modern period, a little bit after the Middle Ages, but in the Middle Ages people could still theoretically have beer as well. Although mostly they were having ale, which is a bit of a simpler drink, but either way, beer and ale full of yeast and nutrients, and it's an important part of your diet if you're living in this time period though. Now we're going to get to the main town. So I just mentioned beer and beer brewing, and that is, a big part of this place because we are in Brewerstown. So actually the first thing you'll see when you come in here is a couple of buildings that are all related to brewing. So I'll fly up for a second so you can see what I'm talking about. So this one here is a tavern where they're serving beer that is freshly brewed. We also have a stables for people who come into the town. Over here we have a cooper, so that is a guy who makes barrels for all of the beer. And you can see back here, he has a little workshop where he's making the barrels. So he's assembling them with bits of iron and wood, and that's how we're getting all of our beer kind of shipped out. And then of course here we have the brewery itself. So we have a nice big well in the middle here, and you can see we're using some display entities to make a cool well design where you can use a pulley system. Over here we're storing our hops. This building here is for storing firewood and barrels. Again, I'm going to get a torch just because it's a little bit dark here. And in here we have the actual beer brewing. This is based off of a reference image, so I tried to be as realistic as possible, but we have these two big chimneys coming out here, and we are mixing together our water and our hops and our yeast into these big vats where we can then brew beer, basically. And over here we have some hops that are being dried out in front of this fire. So it's a kind of a nice little system that they have going here, where all of the Brewerstown economy, or at least this part of it, is really all interacting with beer as an industry. I won't go into all of the houses, but I will peek in every once in a while. I think some of these places are really cool. So this is, like I said, kind of a typical house. We had our shop area here. Back here we have a kitchen, so we have a little stone sink, fireplace. Tried to use a lot of like iron pots and pottery and stuff. Trying to incorporate hanging herbs in the kitchen, little things of wheat that people are using to bake their own bread maybe. Back here this leads to there, and this also leads to the midden. So a midden is like a junkyard. It's a mix of compostable stuff, sometimes animal manure, can be human excrement, old broken stuff. So you can see there's like a bit of a wheel there. Over there there's a broken anvil, a barrel, some rotten flesh, some pots, and an old chair that somebody threw out. It's a cool little thing, and it's all under this tree here, and also under this toilet. So this toilet drops right down into there. And then of course the upstairs is separated into a couple of cool little bedrooms and stuff. We have, through the middle of town here, a little gutter that runs down the street. Over here we have our smithy. So back here, next to the midden, we have our blacksmith shop with a big hammer over here. And you can see that there is a sword in the furnace here. So this is kind of like a blast furnace. We're heating up our metal, and it's getting so hot that it's turned this kind of golden straw color. The blacksmith has a really nice kind of big house here. We can see that there is a little helmet sitting there, and he has a sword in case somebody tries to rob him, basically. And here we can see one of those little pots I was talking about. So I was using polished deep slate slabs to look like a little half cauldron. A cauldron that takes up a little bit less space, like a Dutch oven sort of, except it's just made out of metal. So I guess that's just a normal pot, to be honest. But this guy has an apprentice, and he sleeps up there. So this guy is a fisherman. This one is a baker. So we can come in here and see the bakery process going on. Hopping over the counter, we see he has a wooden paddle to take his bread out of the oven. And the one to the side here is a grocer. So a grocer is somebody who deals in fruits and vegetables, mostly vegetables, but since Brewerstown is a big fruit farming place, they're also selling these plums here. That wasn't supposed to break. A couple of things have broken. I'm not exactly sure why, but so it goes. But again, we're using a mix of like display entities. That one's a display entity too. It's basically a composter that I squished down in half to look like a basket. And we're supposed to have like some big turnips, barrels of carrots, chilies, all sorts of cool stuff hanging here. Over here we have a scribe, which I think this spot looks really cool. So we have our little, hey, where'd the book go? That's weird. We have a little lectern here, and we have some scrolls, and over here we have a little ink and quill. And there's a little way to get up there through that balcony. There are some other houses through here. What I want to show you though is coming around. Almost all of these places have backyards, and this was really important to me with Brewerstown because Regensburg, my last big build, didn't have any backyards basically at all. And so the whole place was like super cramped, and it was really hard to take screenshots. It's really hard to get a feel for the buildings. So yeah, we have some backyards. We have some gardens, some chicken coops, places where they're storing manure. We have places where they're storing firewood and barrels, some bathrooms. This guy is growing some carrots out of a barrel, basically. And over here we have another place where they're storing some gardening stuff, basically. So pots and baskets and, all sorts of useful things. We also have some balconies around a lot of these builds, because these kind of outdoor spaces are really common in the Middle Ages. And then this guy has a laundry sort of wooden post outside, so he's hanging his clothes over a wooden post that goes horizontally. And I used a couple of like gradients on the banners to make it look pretty. Back here though, coming through the priest or the kind of pastor's backyard, we have an entrance that goes down to the docks. So for people who are bringing goods into the city and who are trying to get them up into the castle, this is the quicker way to do it. As long as you don't have like a big wagon, you can basically get up here. And this is where the market is. So it's not every day that we have a market in town, but it seems like today we caught them on a good day. So somebody has come in here and they're selling shields. This one is another grocer, so they're selling berries and plums and some nice little hanging herbs and stuff. This one is selling all sorts of pots, including that custom one that I made. This one here is selling fabrics. So there's no tailor in town. There's nobody who's like dealing with fabrics and stuff officially. But every once in a while we might get lucky and somebody will come into town. And that one is empty for the day. And then back here, this is a glass blower shop. So back here we can see that we are making glass basically. So we have this big pane rolled out, and we have, honestly I forgot what this was, but we did this one on stream and we were thinking about the different things you need to make glass. So we have some sand and stuff, we have a furnace, some pots and bowls with little bits, and whatever that white powder is supposed to be, because I honestly forgot. I've been working on this for a couple months now at this point, like I said. Here we have the church, and we have the old cemetery. So this place is really busy, it's really compact. It's got that kind of uneasy feeling where whenever you're walking around, you always know you're kind of walking over a dead body, which is a little bit macabre, but I like the idea that there are places in the world that might make you a little bit uncomfortable because, like, yeah, it's kind of one of those things that happens in cemeteries, especially really old cemeteries. You always kind of know that you're walking over something, and it's always a little bit weird, a little bit uncomfortable, but a little bit thoughtful as well. It's a moment to reflect. And in case you're wondering that the cemetery is a little bit small, there is actually a second cemetery up on that hill in front of the cow pasture. So that is the newer cemetery next to the little kind of church there. And that's where we've been burying people for the past, 5 or 10 years or whatever. We can come inside this big old church here. But I think it turned out really nice. So we have this kind of red and blue pattern around the walls. We have our indulgence box and a little thing for holy water. Over here we can ring our bells to let people know it's time for church. And if we come through this big kind of brick archway, we get to the center altar. There's also a rear altar, place for a choir to sit back here next to the cross. Here we have another kind of secondary or tertiary altar with a little slab here, kind of indicating to me that maybe one of the founding people from Brewerstown is buried here in the church itself. And then here we have a spot for rich people. A lot of churches you'll see, especially like medieval churches, have some kind of separation between the places for the rich and for the poor. So this has basically done it for the main Brewerstown itself. We have a couple more cool gardens and stuff around here, but apart from that, it is now time to look at the Brewerstown Castle. Alright guys, so why don't we take a little quick flyover so we can get a good view of the castle. But we have a gate here, and then we have a secondary gate here that drops down. The way to get up here is to go up these stairs and get inside, and you can see there is a big mechanism where you would turn this big log and then it would lift the gate up. Around the walls there are these three little towers that protrude out to give you a little bit of a better view. It's not perfect, but still, you can see some stuff that I haven't quite shown off there and there. And then back there is the quarry. If we come down on this side, you can see that there is a dog kennel here. Dogs are important in the Middle Ages, especially hunting dogs. We also have a basin of water and a little area where we're growing some things, and a birdhouse. Down here is the toilet. So the entire castle basically has one tower where there are three toilets stacked on top of each other. They all feed into a tube that drops down into here. So if you're trying to break into the castle, that's one way to do it, although it would be pretty unpleasant. In here we have a blacksmithy. So when we're trying to make sure that all of our weapons and armor are polished and well maintained, we have the blacksmith from the town come up and take a look at all of our stuff. So there is a little area here where there's like a bell, an anvil, some firewood, another big blast furnace. Here we have some more firewood and a big bellows. And here we just have a little area where you can work on sharpening your swords and stuff. And I imagine this little pot here might be filled with oil, or maybe like a wet rag to polish your weapon. Over here we just have a little kind of horse area because this is our stables. You can tell that there are some horses in here. I gave them no AI so that they wouldn't jump around and spin everywhere. But you can see that we have our copper roof above us. And one of the things in Brewerstown I really wanted to do is make some elaborate roofs. So almost every building has like a really well thought out rafter system. It's not just like a flat thing. Over here we have this little unused chamber, and this leads us into the basement. But I'd like us to backtrack a little bit and enter the castle the right way. Over here we have this kind of area where you come in where there are tons of bushes. And this is meant to be a kind of free method of defense. So anyone who's tried to walk through a bush before will tell you that it's not especially easy. Your clothes will get hooked. You can't really get your footing anywhere. So it kind of prevents people from trying to break into these windows here. When we come up here, we can see that there is a little light to get some sunlight into the basement. And then we get to the main level. So this level here is really administrative. We have some storage happening here. So this is stuff that they're going to lower down into the basement with this pulley system. There's a table here for like maybe when we have some big events and we want to host something in this area. This is where the town scribe usually hangs out when he's not doing freelance work, basically. So we have some scrolls here. We have our little book and quill and a little pouch here. And I imagine that the pouch is full of money, so maybe when people come in with like contracts, for example, people who played like The Witcher 3 will know that you can talk to like the Nilfgaardian guard captain in White Orchard, and he'll give you like a pouch of money for slaying a wyvern. Back here we just have a little simple bedroom. A lot of the towers, well, a lot of the rooms in this tower and this tower are used for bedrooms, some pretty small ones just for servants. And this here is actually a guest room. So if you come stay at the castle, this isn't the nicest place necessarily, but you still have your own private room, and there is a little pot here that I'm thinking of as a little bed warmer. So you would put some hot coals in there, put it under your sheets or under the bed, and keep you warm. And this is above that little room I talked about. If we go now to the basement, we can go through this little spiral tower. You can see that I tried to use these kind of iron pressure plates here to look like a puddle of molten wax, which I think is kind of a cool look. So down here, we have these barrel vaulted ceilings. Coming here though, we can see that we are lowering some barrels down into the storage area. So this is kind of bulk storage. This is our pantry. We actually have a well that goes down, so we can lower this bucket here to get some water. Over here, we're storing some things in chests, and we have some extra plates, and this is the part that I really think is cool. So we have like a big old turnip here, or a big old radish or something. Over here we have a melon. This is the only melon in all of Brewerstown, so it must have been very expensive to get here. And we also have some jars. So here we have some pickled eggs, and here we have some pickled plums. And then we just have some candles and cheeses up there. Over here we have our hanging rafters again. So we have some firewood. Over here we have a big thing of meat on a spit, so you can see that it's cooking here, and we get this nice and charred, because there's actually a little bit of a meal happening upstairs. We have a little oven here for baking bread. Back here we have our meat storage, and here we have a cheese. So this is a little sponge displayed onto some red sandstone, and I think it looks really cool. It looks, to me, this is like what a waxed cheese would look like, so I think that's great. Then over here we have a little stone sink, and this is our granary. So we have some wheat, and we have some flour that's already ground up. You may notice that there are some dark spots around here. That's just because these candles have been burning for a while, so they're starting to put soot onto the ceilings. Why don't we climb up though, and we can see the main residential floor. So here it is. We get to this level and there is a private dining area, which is really nice. We have some cushioned seats and some big old windows where you can look over the lake. Over here, we can see that we have a chest by the window, and in here is the Lord of Brewerstown's bedroom. So let's get to it. We have this big old closed window here and a fireplace. Nice to keep toasty. We have a custom piece of furniture here and a big old covered bed. We also have a smaller covered bed for the Lord's child. We have a sword here on top of this bench, or this little kind of custom chest thing, and a big tapestry. Over here, this is used for laundry. So you can see that they are taking out a clean piece of white clothing here, and this is full of other clothes, basically all tucked in. This here is a space for a little bath, so there are tons of flowers hanging. The Lord doesn't want to go all the way down to the bathhouse every time and hang out with the common rabble. Sometimes you just want to take a nice bath in the privacy of your home, and do it with some nice smelling herbs and flowers. And then on this side is something I haven't built basically ever in this world, and that is a treasury. So here we have a chest that's full of coin and pieces of silver and stuff like that. We have some coins on the table. Some important scrolls here, which I imagine are probably like IOUs or important contracts, and then just a big barrel of gold here. There are no windows in this room, so that no matter how high you climb on the castle, the only way you could possibly get here is by going through the Lord's bedroom. Now, if we hang around to this side, you can see that there is a little space for some more servants to be sleeping. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whether these guys are servants or guards, you can kind of decide for yourselves. I think they're probably servants. I don't think Brewerstown has that many guards hanging around like full time. And then in here, this is one of the bathrooms I was talking about. So basically, this whole bathroom system drops down from tower to tower. And you can see that it kind of hooks around so that you're never like pooping on the guy below you, but it is all located in this tower. Now, if we exit here, we can go up to the final level, the final interior space in Brewerstown, basically. And this is the main hall. I think this place is really cool. We have tons of color, tons of life. This is medieval at its best. You know, this is how the rich people are living it up in the Middle Ages. We have two fireplaces, two dogs. We have a big table full of food. It's full of bread and cups and jars and little pots of sauces or pickled vegetables or something. We have a little space here for firewood, and down there, there is another little bedroom for servants. We have our big carpet here leading to the double throne, his and hers, of course. Here we have somebody who's turned to face the petitioners, so when people come to see the king. So that's probably like a guard or an advisor or something. Here we have a space for a little musician to be playing the harp. And then back here is another toilet. And I think this place is great. Obviously it's a little bit dim with shaders, but I think it's just lovely. Brewerstown is a really cool place. It's the most medieval place I've made. Mostly a kind of hang around like fantasy vibes, but this time I wanted to really go for it. We can see that there are chimneys for all of the major fireplaces. So these two go to the level below us, and then this is where the king's fireplace was and where the fireplace in the basement was. You can have to go through all of these towers basically, but the final interior for this place is this. It is a little one-bed prison cell at the very top of the highest tower basically. So it's a little kind of fairy tale vibes, I guess, but I don't think there's a princess up here. I think it's probably just a criminal. And that is going to do it for Brewerstown. I love this project. I think it looks really great. I think it's really fun. We tried out a lot of new techniques, a lot of new things like the birds and using trees for the first time. Tons of custom trees in this place. We have some fishing boats, we have copper roofs, and we have red roofs, and I tried to incorporate a lot of color in this place. We also have all of these glass chimneys. Overall, I could not be happier with how this turned out. To me, this is easily one of my favorite builds in the world. I hope you guys really like it too. It'll be available in a couple months to download when the next Tredagor world download comes out. And until then, guys, if you like this video, please leave a like, please subscribe, comment what you liked, comment with suggestions for further builds, and I will see you guys next time.